Hello and welcome to From the Be All End, the Burnley podcast. This is the rapid reaction for, and I can barely believe I'm saying these words, West Ham United 3, Burnley 2. A game of two halves, perhaps. The Clarets sensational for much of the first half, getting ourselves ahead through Zian Fleming, and then pretty much from then on, an afternoon to forget at the London Stadium. Darren Bentley and Paul Woodhouse with me to discuss this one. Woody, I mean, you have a fondness for words like shite and bollocks and things like that, but all of those could be packaged up to describe, especially that second half, can't they?
Yes. It was, in some respects, it was probably one of our better performances in some regards. We had control of really long periods of that game, didn't we? But as we've seen for most of the season, we don't tend to make it count from open play. It's either something extraordinary that we pull out of the bag, but trying to, work its way into that final third and do something with it. And I don't know. It's just one of those that, a point would have been a fairish result, but you would have. It's like they almost did to us what we've done to various sides coming to the turf. Just let us play and see what we can do with it, and we can't do exactly a lot with it, can we? Even with 65% of possession at times. So yeah, a funny little game, that.
Yeah, and Daz, I mean, we were looking at that lineup before kick-off and we thought, you know what, he's dropped the back five. We look like we're going to be on the front foot. We wanted Chauner in rather than Brun Larson. We thought Brun Larson might get the nod. And as Woody said, controlled big periods of that game. I mean, West Ham, I think, started both halves with period of possession, but really after that, we just got into gear and we started ticking. What can you pinpoint that moment where the whole thing just starts to collapse? Is it that first round of substitutions? Is it that lack of clinical edge in front of goal? I mean, just before they scored their second, the commentators were talking about Dubravka only having one shot on his goal, and that was the goal. We'd done quite well, haven't we, until that point?
We started the games pretty well, I think, and it almost seems like we get a setback and we go back into our shell a little bit. The first goal unquestionably sets the tone, I think.
Yeah.
And the biggest problem for me is, and it's a second goal as well, by the way, we allowed them so much time to cross the ball.
Ridiculous.
And even before the first goal, which comes to the corner, the guy on the right's crossed it and he's been given 5 minutes to cross it. Kyle Walker eventually scuttles it out for a corner on the other side. Then we fall asleep and don't shut the corner down, and crosses into the box are just, I mean, crikey, we are so poor at the minute. Anything that goes into our box, it's a danger. I was thinking until the second goal went in, I was thinking the back four have actually played okay today. They scored that one goal, but we just fall asleep from crosses. And Dubravka, we've relied on all seasons, had a bit of a mare in the last half hour. But we cannot defend, can we? At the end of the day, we don't score enough. That's in a nutshell. That's why we're down there, and that's why we're down there all season.
Yeah, and Woody, I mean, I think Daz is right. That back four, Tuanzebe, I thought probably had his best game for us. He kind of had Wilson under control, but it is that kind of Somerville gets far too much time and space to run directly towards the penalty spot, get his shot away. It does deflect. It's a little bit fortuitous for Wilson, and then we don't clear properly, and then there's a 10-yard, 12-yard gap between a Burnley defender and the crosser of the ball. Before we blinked, he's touched it with both feet, got it out of his feet, stuck a ball into the back post. We're busy claiming for offside, and Souček's got in there. It's becoming a real issue, isn't it? This kind of not getting out to players quick enough, giving players far too much space. For all the plaudits we can give the back four against some of the bigger teams where we've, controlled millions of pounds worth of talent, it's games like this where really West Ham shouldn't have enough to breach us 3 times, should they?
No, we shouldn't be giving that kind of goal away. You can argue that, they can maybe sneak one. But yeah, like you said, it wasn't the best time for Dubravka to start flapping and just pushing it in front of their fella, was it? But it's like there seems to be a little bit of concentration that goes with some of these goals. Like you say, there's far too much space given to the most dangerous fella on the ball who's having a field day. And yes, if you're looking at their front three versus our front three and their attacking options versus ours, you'd probably rather have West Ham, wouldn't you? But it's still no excuse. It's not like they carved us open. They were just drifting fairly aimless balls over. We were giving them those opportunities. We were switching off and we were making mistakes. You do that, and you aren't going to come out too many times on the right end of a score sheet, are you?
Yeah, and we've often talked about these the games where we've got to get something. You know, Scott Parker said he wasn't going to talk about 6-pointers, but you do feel going into an international break with Chelsea at home after that international break, Daz, that West Ham have struck a bit of a psychological blow there, haven't they? Because I know they've got a tough run of games when they come back. I think they start with a trip to Bournemouth, but it brings them level on points. There's only a 2-goal difference now as well. We're just... You know, every aspect of it, we've conceded 3, we've lost the game, they've won a second home game on the trot. It is about momentum in the Premier League, isn't it? And West Ham have just picking up a bit of that.
They would have ringed Burnley on the calendar straight away at the start of the season, and immediately they'd have double ringed it after beating Newcastle last week. Because we touched on it with Burnley, back-to-back wins gets you places in the Premier League. But we are just we're just floating at the minute a little bit, aren't we? We don't create enough, and we've talked about the defence, but we don't create enough chances. You know, our creative players are not performing. Jadon Anthony, I am a fan of Jadon Anthony, but he has to be taken out of that side at the minute and given a break. Chauner and Brun Larson are giving him problems on the right because neither of them are consistent enough. No. And I looked at a little snapshot of our season. Spurs conceded 3, Man U conceded 3, City conceded 5, Villa conceded 2, Wolves conceded 2, West Ham conceded 3, Arsenal conceded 2. 20 goals in those 7 games, and we've scored 8.
Yeah.
We can't keep them out, and we're not putting them in.
Yeah.
And it's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah. Lowest number of shots in the Premier League, I think, before today's game, I saw during the United Spurs game, 74. Spurs second, I think, at that point with 100, Woody. I mean, he's got to solve this conundrum, hasn't he, of what, you know, how do we create more? Because, again, I think Fleming did well enough.
He did okay.
But he's not, he's got a goal. But if we're not creating chances, I was critical of Spurs on Twitter earlier, saying I cannot believe how the lack of ambition from Spurs, and they went on and got 2 and, had to settle for a draw in the end. But it's not a lack of ambition, but it's just I don't know, when both wingers are off form, like say Chauner's not got that consistency, it's a real problem for us, isn't it? If we've not got a striker and we've stopped scoring goals from other areas of the pitch, it's becoming a problem, isn't it, Woody?
But it's Parker ball, isn't it? We know that he sets up to be defensive. This is in his DNA. At not one point during his managerial career has anybody ever said of Scott Parker, "Oh, he was a little bit aggressive there, or he's gone for it there." He's known for dropping strikers to play the likes of your Brun Larsons and to be a defensive-minded manager first. And to be fair, it's worked relatively well for him because if we look at those conversion stats as to the chances that we do take, we've been extremely. In fact, we were second best in the Premier League, weren't we? But it's asking a lot, is that, for you to keep that up over a season? You're both right that we have to be able to do something a little bit more up top than we have been doing, rather than just hoping for worldies week in, week out, because that's not going to keep you up. We have to be able to get into better positions, with better progressive play than we have been doing. And that, unfortunately, comes down to Anthony. And I thought Chauner did relatively well, especially in the first half today. I think it was one of his better games as well. But we need that for something approaching 90 minutes. And we need something else on the other flank. Fleming's played extremely well these past few weeks. Obviously he's scoring, but it needs to come from elsewhere as well. And we haven't seen that, and that's not gonna stand us in good stead.
Yeah.
We're not a 90-minute team at the minute, are we? That's the problem.
No, we're not. No,
Yeah.
I was going to just make that point. It feels like we're a 75-minute team.
Yeah.
And, that tends to be when the changes come and it disrupts that kind of flow. What do you make of the changes, Daz? Because I kind of thought it was slightly odd in the kind of usual Parker way of not as much rhyme or reason. I mean, Hartman, I didn't really see much point in taking Hartman off. I know Perez hasn't contributed much in either direction. Ugo Chukwu, I thought, was probably among our better players. You know, we talked about his drive. It didn't look particularly knackered. What do you think the thinking was behind his choice of substitutions? Was it just trying to, you know, a bit like he did against Arsenal, get as many forward-minded players on the pitch and hope something gets the rub of the green? Or
Yeah, I think he was. I think he was thinking, I want to win the game and get forward players on. But I couldn't believe Jadon Anthony stayed on as long as he could. I could not believe Florentino stayed on as long as he could, because yet again, for me, he floats around that midfield and does nothing. And it's such a harsh result on people like Josh Cullen, the two fullbacks who I thought were great. Twanzebe was great today. You know, but you're talking about 5 players who were great. We still lost a game. I don't think the subs cost us the game. I wouldn't go as far as that. I thought second half, it's a weird conundrum, really. First half, we 30% possession and battering them. Second half, we 60% possession at the 3-quarter stage, and we're losing the game. Go figure that one. I don't think the substitutions affected the game too much today. I just think too many of the creative players had an off day. And defensively, we just can't defend crosses, and we've got a problem for me with Florentino. We've got a problem with him. I don't see what he brings to the team.
That caused quite a stir, Woody, I think, amongst us two when we recorded on Friday, and certainly the posters on Up the Clarets and on our YouTube page weren't too keen on Daz dropping out Florentino. But do you think today Daz has had a bit of a point? I mean, I thought it was probably his worst game for us. He got that knock early doors on, you know, bandaged up Terry Butcher style without the blood that you're not allowed these days. But today he was very ineffective, wasn't he? I kind of thought I'd watch him a bit more closely, given what Daz says. He did give the ball away quite a bit. He wasn't his usual effective self, was he?
There's that little thing there seems to be with Florentino, that if he's not quite there in the challenge, he's one of those who will go to ground for a tackle, you know, and if he's just slightly out, you can play around him a little bit, and all of a sudden he seems to look a little bit ineffectual, and he's not biting and he's not snapping at heels. I think he did all right, but I can't work out why Ugo Chukwu gets taken off as like the first choice every single week, because he looks to have a little bit more in his tank, and as yet he hasn't deserved, you know, a substitution, and especially not today, because he's arguably one of our more progressive players up top. He's linking things extremely well, and we seem to run out of gas and ideas once him and arguably China had come off, and we struggled to find our ways back into games in a second half. We're either holding on because we've got a result to get out of it, but we sure as hell aren't. We spend about 20 minutes trying to work out how to play again in a second half, and a lot of that possession that we had today was of the aimless variety. It's just passing it across the back, little dinks. It's worthless possession. There's nothing we can do with it. And so that's what worries me as well. It's very much a case of a lot of the times that we were playing last year and playing like that, and we seemed to struggle, that turned into 0-0s. These now obviously turn into 3-1s, don't they? Or 3-2s.
Compare Florentino to Cullen. And that's week in, week out for them. Got week out and week. Now, I don't think for a second Florentino's lack of performance cost us the game today. We lost the game in both boxes, really. But it's another problem for him, I think. There's that problem. There's the wingers at the minute who aren't delivering. We're asking a striker to feed on scraps. Not a great recipe at the minute.
No, definitely not. We'll get more into it in the full debrief. We thought we'd jump on pretty much as soon as the final whistle went at the London Stadium. But yeah, we'll leave it there, chaps. Thank you very much. Not the result the Clarets were looking for. I think we went there hoping we'd be able to get a good result against a West Ham side who've not looked great shakes so far this season. But unfortunately, the Clarets do go into the international break on the back of a 3-2 defeat. Like I said, we'll be back Sunday into Monday if you're over in the States. I'm sure that the episode will be out just as you're getting ready to tuck into whatever you tuck into stateside on a Sunday. And for everybody else, it'll be ready for your morning commute on Monday. But until then, until we see you again, enjoy what's left of the weekend and up the Clarets.